friends, I want to talk for a few minutes with the people of the United States about banking.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Kristen Stogniew with Saltmarsh, Cleveland & Gunn. I work in the compliance department, but I also have a passion for fintech and innovation and helping community banks deal with the challenges of their environment, which of course includes currently some of the stresses and challenges of COVID and working in remote environments, but also the challenge of staying innovative. A lot of pressures come from banks, from their shareholders, from their stakeholders, from the regulators. And so in my experience, I've come across two client bankers that I would say are cutting edge innovation for community banks in their environment, and one digital only banker. So I would like to welcome you to a fireside chat while we do a remote virtual discussion about creating a culture of innovation in community banking. I'd like to start with letting each of the panelists introduce themselves separately, and then we'll circle back and enjoy a discussion among the panelists. So the first panelist is Dan Sheehan. He is chairman and CEO of Professional Bank, a publicly traded bank out of Miami, Florida, that is now $2 billion in assets. Last year at this time, they were, $700 billion, so they've had some great growth. I would like Dan to just introduce yourself, Dan, and tell us about how you came into banking and what your experiences with innovation and fostering that culture in your bank.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Kristen. And you did a pretty good job briefly introing me. Anyways, I'm Dan Sheehan, Chairman, CEO of Professional Holding Corp., the public vehicle that wholly owns its subsidiary Professional Bank. I was one of the co-founders who founded the bank in 2008. As Kristen said, we're a little bit over $2 billion today. The first $1 billion of that was organic. We're largely, we're in the Miami-Dade MSA. We've got branches extending from down in South Miami, Miami-Dade County, up to Palm Beach Gardens or northern Palm Beach County. We've got 9 locations in Florida, plus 1 digital innovation center up in Cleveland, Ohio. My background, I started investment banking up in New York, worked in real estate private equity, real estate capital markets, and this is the only bank I've ever worked at. I've got no mental baggage as to why things should be done the way they should be, simply because many of the decisions that we've had to make or issues that have risen, I'm looking at it in some respects still as an outsider looking in. That being said, it's a fine balance with a lot of my partners who have been in banking their entire career. And I think that it's that collaboration that has helped us kind of move forward and accomplish what we've done today. Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks, Dan. Lindsey Blaise is president and CEO of the Citizens First Bank out of the Villages, Florida, a very vibrant retirement community. And also, Lindsey, this is the first bank you've worked at, just like Dan, right?
That's correct. And like Dan, I started in investment banking during my undergraduate years. I did that for a little while and then tried the community bank here in my local hometown, the Villages, Florida, and fell in love with community banking and being able to have a strong, close relationship with my customers.
And your bank is about the same, but just a little bit bigger than Dan's bank, right? About 2.7.
Well, we closed the month at 2.83. It's been, like Dan, a while. Last year, we've grown almost 500 million just organically. So I feel your stress, Dan. You must be under a lot of stress with that kind of growth.
Lindsey, how do you foster innovation in your bank?
Lots of different ways. It's just something I encourage from every employee to always think of a better way to do whatever you're doing. And I always challenge the why. When I get an answer, I don't usually take that as the final answer, which I'm sure can be a little annoying sometimes, but I think it's led us to some really great outcomes. One of the things I like to do is just practice change. It's when you are in an environment where banking, people kind of think of, the stiff coat, formal, but, the little things like our senior management meeting, I try to make sure that everybody sits in a different seat every time, and, little things like that.
Well, little things. I've been to several of your bank's team meetings, and I say they're like an Oprah episode with hooping and hollering, and giveaways and challenges. And I mean, your management team has really come a long way since I've known, because I was working with the bank before you came along, and I could see the impact that you've had. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into how you made that happen, the focus. I'd like to introduce Patrick Sells. He is, let's say this, American Banker's Digital Banker of the Year last year. Was that right? Also brand new to banking, as I understand it. I have listened to several podcasts with Patrick as the focus, and have really enjoyed hearing his perspective as he came into community banking. And his bank is in one branch located in Rockefeller Plaza, New York, Quontic Bank, and otherwise digital only. So Patrick, tell us how you came into banking and some of your thoughts around fostering innovation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this with you, Kristen. I came into banking, I guess I'm coming up on 20 months ago. Before that, I'd spent about 10 years building my own marketing technology agency, and we really focused on how do you help companies build new products or services with technology. However, I was never actually working in the banking industry, even though I tried many times until Quontic, and they actually initially hired us to help grow their reverse mortgage business. And about the same time, 2018, Quontic would get a formal agreement with our regulators for not having for too much wholesale deposits. We had 67% wholesale deposits on our liability side, and we had to fix that really quickly. And the way we thought we could do that was to turn it into a digital bank. And so I ended up moving to New York, sold my company, and began to re-envision what a community bank could look like and a digital bank could look like, and using culture as the main way we were going to drive that.
And when you came to the bank, they were ready, willing, and able to make a complete shift from reverse mortgages?
Well, reverse mortgages was just one of the things we were doing on the lending side at that time. It wasn't so much if they were willing. When you have a formal agreement from the OCC, you must act, and we knew to act that quickly. Digital was really the only way. So there was definitely some resistance and some pushback or hesitation, but I think we were able to pretty quickly get the bank all moving in the same direction. But it's definitely taken a lot of work and a lot of conversations to get there.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the people at the bank and the type of community banker that we envision, and their backgrounds and their expectations and their conservativeness, let's say. Maybe Patrick, if you could talk a minute about how you came into it outside of the industry. And I think we've all talked about questioning why. How did you deal with the mindset? Was it a cultural shift from the top down about allowing some changes to become more innovative?
I think at first, Steve, who's our CEO, knew he needed to change, and so did the bank. Again, we had kind of a gun to our head in many ways. But I think, like so many in banking, the kind of default mindset is you can fix it with, a different technology provider, or you need to hire a certain, person, and that will fix the problem. It's very transactional in nature. And so at first, that was kind of the mentality was, well, we need to have online account opening. But I think, to be able to compete and win in this environment and where the industry is going, there's no one-stop shop, right? You can't fix it in one move. You really have to be able to get the entire organization to understand and think about innovation and how to do things differently and how to be consistent and clear on who we are. And the more we focused in on the culture side, I think that's what enabled us to accelerate the digital transformation, because the culture brought us together. It made it fun. It gave us all kind of clear lines of who we are and how we wanted to interact. And as that really began to take form, I think a lot of the digital and the innovation, and even innovation that doesn't involve technology, begin to take root. But there's definitely, I think, coming in from the outside, there is a cultural issue, I think, in banking at large. And even so much from a reputational standpoint, I think it's interesting that being a banker used to have a lot of prestige. But I don't know many young people today who graduate college and say, I'm going to go be a community banker. And I think that's part of why the industry is behind. We lost the war on talent over the last couple of decades. And I think it's largely because of the cultural piece, right? You could do the same thing, but you could do it at a company that, had a keg in the kitchen. That sounds a lot more fun than a community bank with, compliance. And so I think we have to figure out how do we change the reputation and culture of the industry at large.
Yep. We could take some lessons from Lindsey and her team meetings and making them more fun. And Dan, I know when you first came into banking, you questioned everything, right? And how did you get to shift what you had walked into, which was a traditional community bank with brick and mortar and that kind of a atmosphere in South Florida, to get it to be a little more open to some of the digital and innovative ideas that you bring to the table?
Sure. Well, I think Patrick was right. I mean, the ability to attract talent is a real competitive advantage if you can do it in this space, because the industry generally is old, fat, and tired. I mean, it's been bloated, and it takes crises like these or threats, external threats, to cause change. And for those who have responded by seeking out talent, cultivating the culture you want, and executing on these things, it's really going to pay dividends down the road. I still am a firm believer, if you really want to address the broadest segment of the market, you're going to have to do both really well. I think people still like the option to visit their money if some kind of unique situations arise, but you can't ignore the demand, the behavior changes, and the consumer preferences on how people interact with products and services. It's amazing what you can do on your phone right now. And if you can't adapt your business model to that, I don't care if you're in banking or any other industry, you're going to fall behind. And so I think that because the barriers to entry to this industry typically have been so high, you need a license, there's a ton of regulation, this and that I think banks have gotten so comfortable feeling, with a sense that the barriers are so high that they don't need to disrupt themselves because others won't, but that's changing. Some of the things that, and I'll share a story with you. I when I first got involved with this bank, it was supposed to be a passive investment. I sat on the board. I was an outside director. And when I got more involved over the years to what I've done now, one of the things that was always in my mind was that the color of our money is the same as anybody else's. So you're kind of delivering a commodity product at the end of the day. And so it's the delivery experience is how you differentiate yourself. So we've tried to infuse as much fun as possible and embrace, I don't think there's another industry in the country or in the world for that matter that is more regulated than a bank inside the US. So we embrace all of the aspects of the business that aren't regulated. So the way our business card looks, the way our branches look. A couple of years ago, we had this open wall in the Palm Beach Gardens branch office, and we were kind of figuring out what we wanted to do. And we decided to have a graffiti party. And so in terms of employee engagement, I actually went and bought a couple $100 worth of spray paint. And we had this like graffiti party and just, I had analysts that had previously worked at JP Morgan, another TD Bank, a few at SunTrust. And I asked them, have you ever done anything like this at your former employer? And a lot of these folks were, I'd say, in their mid 30s to mid 40s. They'd been around a lot of the big banks, and every single one of them thought this was so cool and so different, and they could never envision anything like this happening at the big banks. And so we've done other things. So we're trying to make it fun. Where you get to work, where you get to spray paint the walls. Also, when we've reached certain milestones throughout the evolution of the bank, whether it's a going public event, a size milestone, asset growth, et cetera, we've been what I believe to be fairly generous. We give folks shares. We want people to celebrate and high five one another, but most importantly, develop a sense of ownership. And so everybody can act and behave a little bit like an owner when it comes to playing their position. And my attitude has been with a lot of these folks, like a startup, even though we're 12 years old, is that everybody sweeps the floors here. And I don't care where you are on the org chart. If something needs to get done and you're in a position to do it, doesn't matter what your title is, you do it. And what's been great for us is we've got 170 something employees now. We've got 10 locations. One of them's 1,000 miles away, and it's really worked. And what's fun for me to see is that there's been a lot of real meaningful friendships and relationships that have been built at the bank, just aside from working from one another. People are hanging out using Microsoft Teams to do these kind of virtual cocktails with one another. And a lot of the meetings I've been having with my team and others, because you never know who's going through what at home. We're not getting the benefit right now of seeing the micro expression on someone's face in the hallway. Are they in a good mood? Are they in a bad mood? And look, statistically, I'm certain there's people at home that might be dealing with a little bit of depression right now. Coming to the office was therapeutic for them, this and that. And so we've been having a lot of these calls with the teams and so forth. And the mandate has been, 75% of the time you can't talk about the bank. So just talk about whatever, but just don't talk about the bank, don't talk about business. And it's been a way for us to kind of stick together. When really crazy things happen, organizations typically do two things. They're completely disoriented and everybody scatters, or everybody comes together, huddles, and gets stronger. And we've been kind of focusing on the latter. So I was about to say when we started this, part of my ignorance up front was when I was a passive investor at first, I thought, well, gosh, how hard could this be? I've been doing much larger transactions all around the world, and this is a simple business. We're paying out X on deposits. We're using other people's money and earning Y. We get to keep the difference. How hard can this be? And about two years in, after going through 2009, 2010, it was a real eye opener. And look, all businesses are like a lemonade stand. Some are more complicated than other. And I don't think this business is very complicated at all, the model, but the execution is incredibly complicated because there's a people aspect, a technology aspect, and be able to bring those two together in what would be perceived externally sometimes as a commodity type space, that's really complicated. And I've had a lot of fun, and I've surrounded myself with a great team that enjoys what they do beyond just making money. So I've had fun, and I think people have embraced that kind of mindset here.
Well, and you talked about the virtual working environment, which brings me to kind of the next topic I want to address is COVID. I want to make sure that we're being, relevant in current times. And both you and Patrick's Bank being in kind of hotbed, let's say, areas have probably pivoted and done a lot more with your team. Lindsey's bank, let's hear, you're all still working in the banks, right? And how are you, dealing with the COVID issue with your especially with your clients then that may be impacted and not able to manage?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be in an area of the country that's not very active with COVID cases, but we do have a very high-risk population around us.
Right.
But from the beginning, probably March, April timeframe, we had about a month where we went to appointment only in the branches and drive-through only. But since really June, we've been back open, business as usual, except for the minor changes in health safety standards like the desk shields, and we have asked our employees to wear masks, required them to wear masks. We really have just done some small things like that, enhanced cleaning, but it really was interesting for us, for our customer base who, we are very traditional branch model bank, and our customers love to come in, and they come in, it's part of their weekly trip. They get their coffee, they have popcorn in the lobbies, they visit whether they have a transaction to do or not. So that was a big difference for them, and we had to coach them through how to do their banking online, how to use the mobile deposit, and even in some cases how to use a drive-through. Even though we have those all over, and you would think that that's something that everybody knows how to do, we did little videos and a newspaper article on it. So it's different here, but we're still impacted by it, and we're still having to navigate through changing how we do business.
From your operations standpoint, to be able to service clients from the drive-through in areas where they might have otherwise come into the branch?
Yeah, and we even did notarizations through the drive-through. We did wires through the drive-through, which is one of those things. I mean, we wouldn't even do a wire over the phone before COVID. Extreme exception, but you know, we made those adjustments, and everybody in our branches and our operations team were very positive about it, and really just jumped in to do whatever they needed to do to take care of our customers, which was the main goal.
Right. How about you guys, Patrick? What did you all do differently under COVID conditions? Maybe in conjunction with you being a community development financial institution. That's another unique factor about Quontic Bank that I'm fascinated with.
Yeah, we actually sent everyone work from home probably, I think, the day before the shelter-in-place orders came in, and it's been a very tough time, especially I think this first month or two in New York. We knew a lot of people getting sick, and so we tried to be very proactive with our employees and our customers. We did a couple of fun things, with our employees. At one point, we sent everyone a bottle of wine, and then we did a company happy hour, and everyone could kind of join in together, and that was fun. And our CEO, Steve, does, a weekly video. We all get on and kind of just talk about what's going on. And one of the things, and it kind of piggybacks off what Dan was saying, that we do when we start meetings is what we call positive focus. And so, one of our core values is say cheese. And it's about, no matter what's going on in your day, if someone stops to try to take a picture of you and says, say cheese, what are you going to do? You smile, right? And usually the photographer smiles too. And so we want to be that kind of place where employees are making each other smile, and we make our customers smile. And so to that end, one of the things we implemented is positive focus. So when a meeting starts, everyone just quickly goes around and says one thing positive that's gone on in their life, or they're excited about. It could be personal or professional. And I think right now that's an example in the areas we tried to really build out is how do you, stay positive and stay personally connected when it's maybe not as easy to be in the kitchen together talking for a few minutes, right?
Yep. I heard about this drawbridge product that you're offering, and I think that's kind of innovative. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we launched what's called Drawbridge Savings. We wanted to think about what's a way in which everyone, this is probably 2 weeks into COVID. And at that time, it was largely, impacting New York, though we know it would quickly spread around the whole country. But we wanted something where we felt like people, whether stuck at home, could do to help and be a part of what was going on. And so you could open up a savings account. We pay you 50 basis points of interest, and then we would match that interest in a donation to a fund to help those that had been affected by COVID. So we took a little bit of Tom's model and tried to bring it into banking. You get a good product and you help someone. So that was a lot of fun to launch. But the PPP was quickly announced after that. I think it kind of overshadowed the drawbridge in a good way. But it was a fun example of just trying to think about how do you do banking differently and make it less of a commodity and more of a product that appeals to someone because of who they are.
Did your bank get involved in PPP?
We didn't actually originate any PPP loans. We don't do a lot of small business banking. However, we bought about $1.2 billion of these loans in partnership with a couple of fintechs, and Intuit being a big one. So we act as a financing mechanism for them.
Okay. Well, Dan, I know your bank was very involved in PPP loans, and as I understand it, you had implemented some innovation to help process those. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So we did a little bit over $225 million of PPP volume. There's a few different ways to, I would say that most of the investor community measured its success. One was just volume relative to your balance sheet. So, what was your kind of corporate agility, relative to your resources? The second one was loan size, right? So were you doing really big chunky deals, or was your median loan size relatively small? So were you helping truly small business? And then the third was, which I'm most excited about. I mean, the fees are certainly helpful, but 50% of our PPP volume was to new customers. And we all read about some of the criticism that some of the larger banks were getting for taking care of their clients only, or taking care of their clients first, and their larger clients. And so not only did we do pretty well from a volume perspective relative to our size. I think end of Q1 or Q2 we did about 16 to 17% of our quarter ending relative to gross loans. Our median loan size was, I believe it was 40 something thousand bucks. Wow. And 78% of all of our loans are under $150,000. And then, but lastly, 50% were to new clients. And so while the fees are, certainly helpful, what I think speaks to long-term value creation is being able to establish these relationships during a time of crisis. So look, the big banks are great at a lot of things. They've got tremendous resources, a lot of talents, et cetera. But the industry had not seen the government roll out something with this kind of scale at this velocity. And so in many respects, there was a size disadvantage in synthesizing the information, organizing your resources, and executing. And so, we repurposed a number of our employees to become overnight PPP experts. And so we shifted our org chart, educated everybody, and not only took care of our existing clients, but used this as an opportunity to gain some market share and impress upon some folks in the community that were having bad experiences with some of the larger banks to come over and bank with us. We, during round one of the PPP, a lot of it was just manual. Everybody was drinking from a fire hose. We realized when the SBA site kept on crashing, it was because the server load was too great. And so what we did is we started having people work during the night. And so as the got into 11 o'clock at night, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., we were able to submit quite a bit of our requests and get E-Tran numbers when everybody else was going to sleep. And so towards the end of round one, we started introducing some automation. We had kind of gotten good at this. And so my digital team created a schematic or an assembly line of all of the points where we need to collect data. And then, our bankers needed to kind of size the loan. Simultaneously, we needed to cover the BSA and KYC matters, and then try to eliminate any redundant requirements for inputting data, because you want to reduce the error rate and, of course, minimize the labor time. And really put something really great together towards the end of round one. And I think there was another 10 days to 12 days or something between round one and round two. And by the time round two came up, it was great because we were firing on all cylinders, and we had built a bot to do certain parts of the process. What was taking us roughly 35 man or woman hours, minutes, not hours, 35 minutes. This bot was doing it in like 40 seconds, and it was a pretty cool thing to see. We've similarly are prepared for the forgiveness aspect. As everybody knows, the SBA opened up their portal on the 10th. There's still a lot of details that we're kind of sorting out and getting right. We have had borrowers start to submit their forgiveness documentation, we anticipate, like all banks, there will be some kinks to work out, but I think we're in a pretty good position to handle those.
Well, you mentioned digital transformation team, and so kind of the next topic I wanted to address is how do you actually execute on innovative ideas in a community bank? Because generally, to Patrick's point, community bank employees are not the most innovative thinkers. They're not the young people that have all these skills. So how did you get that team together? Where did you go, and how do you manage them?
Yeah, sure. So I will tell you that it's all big bank talent that's working in a small bank. And part of my pitch, just getting these folks over were, look, I don't know if the big bank, you're required to wear a tie to work every day or this or that. I said, look, we're a startup here. They had complained that half of their time was developing political capital to get certain projects approved, because there was this an awful lot of allocation of energy just to sponsor and champion certain ideas within a big budget through layers of bureaucracy. And so my pitch to them is that, look, as long as we have a really flexible core that can allow us to do whatever we want to do on top of it, I can promise you there's going to be no politics. I'm not going to require anybody to put a PowerPoint presentation together to pitch their idea and have it sit with committee after committee after committee. And I think part of our competitive advantage is that, we come up with a lot of ideas, and we know there's going to be some bad ones in there, but once we stumble on a good one, it's all execution. I mean, we're on it, and I give our team a long leash. We understand what we're getting into from a kind of a cost perspective. We understand what we're getting into from a risk standpoint. We never compromise on any of the security issues and make sure that there's no incremental risk in doing what we do. But I've given our team the flexibility to really act on any leading edge technologies, ideas to execute on with little to no bureaucracy. Now, I'm a younger guy, so I can appreciate the tech for my role and position at the bank. Perhaps I appreciate the tech a little bit more than some of my older peers. I'm not sure. I think so. And the fact that we act and think like entrepreneurs, and they're in an org chart and setup that allows them to do same while still working at a bank is really refreshing, because all of their experiences working at former banks is kind of like what Patrick was talking about, or Lindsey was talking about earlier. It's just kind of a stagnant, typically a stagnant industry where people in the upper third of the org chart are typically a little bit too comfortable in their jobs and kind of scared of change. And my attitude is if someone's going to if something's going to disrupt our business, I'd rather us disrupt ourselves than someone else do it to us. And I think that's been a kind of a healthy way to look at it. And look, our team's fired up, and I'm kind of pleased with what they're doing with what's available right now.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I we'll talk more about some of the specific deliverables that your team has provided to the bank. Lindsey, since Dan threw the ball to you, you have a digital team too, but a little bit different. Why don't you tell us about it?
We do. About a year ago, we started putting together what we call our transformation department. And it's currently only really about 4 employees, but their whole entire purpose is to look at everything across the bank, every department, every process, and help us find better ways to do that. So that's been in place for about a year, and it's going really well. A lot of great ideas have come out of it, and I think we're overwhelming them with ideas from the rest of the areas of the bank and trying to get their time to work on our projects. But so that area is growing rapidly.
And those efforts to improve processes aren't necessarily technological, right? They could be just.
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal when you talk about innovation for people to automatically assume you're talking about technology, but it's not always that way. Like if you look at Chick-fil-A, for example, their innovation and what sets them apart from other fast food companies is just the way that they treat their customers. They use my pleasure when somebody thanks them for something. So little things like that. And we've been able to, with that group, just take a look at a process like our mortgage satisfaction process. We have a pretty high volume of mortgage business, and it's something that's been newer to the bank for within the last 4 years. So we've had to really scale up our operations to support that. And we found out several months ago that we only had one person signing all of our mortgage satisfactions each month. And so I said, well, this is a little change that we could make. All we have to do is get a board resolution to approve more signers on satisfactions, and that process is a lot smoother and a lot better for our customers too, because they're not waiting on our department to be able to handle the workload.
I absolutely agree with what you said, Lindsey. I think it's something I've talked about some, that innovation should not be synonymous with technology. right? And that's not what the word, if you go to the definition of innovation, it has nothing to do with technology. And I think there's almost like a misfocus in the industry where everyone wants to talk about innovation in terms of technology, and the rest of the bank is meanwhile needs innovation as well. We need to do things differently, but there's no conversation really happening around that. So I love that point, Lindsey.
Yeah, it's really more about the culture, I think, than anything. And technology definitely helps, and it's extremely important, but you have to have the culture piece.
Absolutely.
Well, and isn't part of that culture the willingness to, what Patrick, I've heard you call your vision is, or your culture is to try it on, to try different things, and you don't have to necessarily go full Monty into something. If it's not working, change it.
Yeah, so that's try it on is one of our 4 core values. And so what we mean by that is we don't want to get hung up, taking 20 meetings to talk about something, because we don't know if we don't know what the results will be. And kind of the analogy we give on that is, if you're at a department store and you see a shirt you like, you're not going to stop for 20 minutes and make a pro con list on your phone about trying the shirt or not. You're just going to put it on, and if you don't like it, you move on, right? And so we want to encourage people to try it on. Another one is the idea of progress, not perfection. So the destination for us is a constant state of progress. And it's not about trying to be perfect in how we execute something. And then the third one is know the goal. In other words, we want to make sure we understand the outcomes of what we're doing. And so with those, and say cheese would be the fourth, but with those as kind of the guiding principles, it enables us to allow all of our employees and team to really think about new things and try new things however they want to. Just, go back to those 4 core values. Make sure you know what the outcome you want. Let's try it on. Let's not get caught up trying to be perfect, and let's have fun while we do it, because there's change happening everywhere, and that's stressful.
Right. Dan, how do you guys go about it? Getting ideas for what your customers may be wanting, or what the next generation of customers in particular would be wanting?
Well, we just try to be good listeners to our clients, and give opportunities to our clients to provide genuine feedback. And we found just being really good listeners has been a great source for ideas. Also, we like to think we listen really well to our employees. I mean, I had a town hall just a couple weeks ago, and we always are asking for employee feedback, along with my comment about the mindset of thinking and acting like an owner. The bigger we get, we realize that the harder it may be to spot certain dysfunctions in the org chart, or the workflows, or certain processes. And so we've got this thing we call the PB Kudos, where folks can go onto a portal and make certain suggestions and champion them. And people get a lot of recognition for doing that, for making the place better. And so in terms of sourcing the ideas, it's just being good listeners. I mean, the wisdom of the crowds, I think often is understated or little understood. And it's my opinion, there's just a wealth of knowledge and idea generation, just being a good listener, both internally and externally.
Didn't you have a specific focus group of millennials at the bank to get their input specifically?
So we and COVID kind of disrupted the timing, but we've been kicking around the idea of starting a direct bank, digital only bank, based on top of the professional bank, and coming up with a few of these different personas. We developed these focus groups, whether it was millennials or this, targeting folks, and we would give people kind of a profile, like they were an actor. So they, it was one of the names was Gadget Gary, and Gadget Gary was 4 years out of college. He was making X dollars a salary. He had a Netflix account. He was an Amazon Prime member. He was paying this much in rent. This was his leftover discretionary income, and this is what his average balances were in his checking account. And so you put everybody kind of, again, acting like as if they were kind of playing a character in the movie. You give them the kind of character that we want to be, and we'd get 20 of our employees. We rented it was a farm. We rented a barn out 20 miles west of here, and we made a day of it. And so we went out there with our marketing folks and our digital folks. And we played around with this focus group on what kind of experiences would they want to have or expect if they're interacting with their bank. And was great. We came up with all these great ideas. And we had a few other personas that were targeting certain segments in the population that we think are great. And so this was an exercise that both we learned a lot out of, but two, it was a lot of fun. And we pulled folks, not just people in tech or not people in management. We pulled a cross section of the entire org chart. So we had all kinds of people in there, different positions in the org chart, coming up with all these like great ideas and just kind of hanging out for the day. And I think that when people feel comfortable, people feel relaxed, and they're not scared to speak up, that's when you got an exciting culture. That's when you got an exciting company, because if you can kind of tap into the brain power, experiences, and skill set across all your people, good things happen. And so that's one example of how we kind of generate some of these ideas and get everybody engaged.
Something that's been interesting for us as we've gone through this digital journey, where today 99% of our deposits come online, right? We've replaced all of those wholesale funds. The average age of our depositor is 58 years old. We actually only 1% of all of those deposits is under the age of 30. And so it's just been interesting as we've gotten into this, who really is the online customer or the digital customer that a bank wants, and how, and I think there's this misnomer that the over 50 age group doesn't want digital banking, when you look at it ourselves and our peers, it's almost entirely that population that's actually the ones that are adopting and using digital banking.
Yeah, Patrick, conversely, I think some people would think that, the younger crowd has no use for a branch. They don't want to go to a branch. And in many respects, the frequency at which younger folks go to branch is far less than it is now. But surprisingly, all the research we read and the experience we've had is that while they still tend to use, want to use their phone and the preference, mobile over anything else, young people still want the ability to go visit their money if something comes up outside of what a mobile app can solve for. And so, it's a really interesting data point you shared. And to your point, I think you tried it on. Whatever thesis you had going into it, you're kind of disproving your thesis along the way, adapting and reacting in real time.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head, the idea of try it on. I think when we first were going to go be a digital bank, we tried to do it perfectly. We thought about all the bells and whistles and technology we would need and what do young people want. And we started signing up for all these contracts. And then we realized, wait a minute, we don't even know. Let's just try this and see what happens. And we ended up probably 60% of the contracts we had signed, we ended up getting out of, because it was for all these bells and whistles that our actual customer didn't care about, right? And this is that kind of, we speak about innovation, you so often don't know what you're going to find until you just go try it on, right? And then you can get the data and begin to really hone where you want to go from there.
Great points. Lindsey, I know you're working on modernizing your branches that your customers love to come and hang out in. Want to talk a little bit about your efforts there?
Yes, we are. We're working on 2 branches right now, one within our Villages Market and then one just outside in Bellevue. Both of those, we're trying a different approach away from the standard traditional teller line and then separate customer service representative desks and offices. So we're moving to more of the universal teller pod method. So we're going to try it on, see how it goes, see how our customers respond. One of the big things for me is all of our branches are designed to feel like you're walking into somebody's living room and have that comfortable atmosphere. So I really want to make sure that gets into the design elements and that we don't go, I guess, too modern of a look. So it's interesting. Most banks that are going to the teller pod, very sleek, kind of Apple Store-esque, but we want it to be a little bit of tradition mixed with the new technology and new, more universal banker theory that we're really focusing on, calling them personal bankers. So they'll do a little bit more than just teller in traditional CSR activities, but that's kind of our focus in our branches right now.
Yeah, I like that. Just a simple terminology change. Patrick, I know you've got some pretty cool technology that I'd like to talk about on wearables. What is a wearable for payments?
Yeah, so we're going to be probably 2 months, I think, is when it's coming out. We've got a wearable debit card. It's a ring you can put on any of your fingers. It doesn't need a battery. It doesn't need to be by your phone. And it has the contactless chip embedded in it. So you can go to an ATM or to a restaurant or a store and you can wave your hand and pay for something, and it's great. Originally, we were doing this for New York as the subway system there was moving to accept contactless payments as opposed to the MTA cards. And so we began this, about a year ago, and it just so happens that, it's a great product in the age that we're living in now, where people are sensitive to germs and wanting to stay hands-free. And so we'll be rolling that out, I think 2 months from now. I think it's the first wearable debit card in the country.
I've never heard of it. I know
Cool.
Disney has the hand, the bracelets for payments, and I love that convenience. You don't even have to have your phone with you, which we typically think of as that's the best way to make payments. You don't need a card or obviously
Right.
not a checkbook.
Right.
So, and Dan, you all have made some advances in your payments space too with a P2P application, I understand.
Yes, using the debit card rails. So we can, if you're unlike Zelle, where you need to be at a Zelle bank and need to be sending money to a bank that's part of the Zelle directory. And if the recipient bank is not part of the Zelle directory, it won't work. Or Venmo, where you can send the money right away, but if you want to pull it out down into your bank account, you either have to pay a fee if you want to do it right away, or you got to wait a couple days for it to clear. So we are sending money using the debit card rails free and fast, and I can send it to any recipient who's at any bank, and all I need is a cell phone number. And it's pretty cool. I used it yesterday with somebody, and we think free and fast are two things that everybody is going to resonate with. And so we've got that. We've introduced some other mobile features related to COVID. People are coming in less to the branches. And so, increasing your debit card limit, cash withdrawal temporarily, through your phone for 30 minutes and it comes back down is another thing. There's a few features as well that we're embedded in mobile, and we've now got mobile robust mobile experience. All of the features that you can do online is now mobile. So there's nothing you can't do on your phone now that you can't do in front of a computer, and we've gotten a kind of great positive feedback in that regard.
Great. What about innovation for internal processes? Lindsey, you guys are experimenting and working on a robot, I hear.
Yeah, we're using robotic process automation in our mortgage origination area. We actually just rolled it out last week, so it's new. It's kind of out there for us because we went with an outside entity, Clasys, which actually we have a secure room set up in India, and there's a group of developers that work to create these robots, and then we take them and apply them to our systems. But we're trying them out primarily on ordering services for mortgages.
I got to interrupt you for a minute. I love that you're in a retirement community using RPA. That's awesome.
Well, it's new. I hope to use it a lot more, but this is just our trial run to see how those ordering services and title appraisal works. Our team is a little nervous about it, to be honest. Our digital transformation team, they're all about it, but the actual people that are on the mortgage origination process line, they're skeptical, but we're still pushing forward.
Yeah. You have some thoughts on it, Patrick, obviously?
I think, RPA has tremendous ability to really change the community banks in a good way and free up resources, capital to continue to invest into better customer experiences and services. And it's, something, and I think it's, to Lindsey's point, it's also something that it feels very foreign because a human was supposed to do that. And even in banking where change isn't easy, innovation isn't easy, And I think in any industry, this fear that a robot could replace me is inherent, and we have to understand that, right? And so there's reasons why as leaders we want to use something like this, but how do you get your team to be okay with it and encourage them to try it on and remind them that this isn't for the goal of replacing you. It's for the goal of freeing you to add value in bigger and better places. But I just kind of on a little tangent there. I just love RPA and I love that story.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do on the front end of some of these process changes and things like that. We talk to them that this piece of technology or this change is really all about giving you more time to talk to your customer. It's not about replacing you at all. It's about getting rid of the little tasks, repetitive tasks that you do so that you can focus on one-to-one conversations. So yeah, it's challenging, but I think our team at least is willing to try it.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the roadblocks that I often see come into play when banks are wanting to innovate or develop a new service or product is the customer access to the customer data or the right data to be able to make decisions and use it for other factors. Dan, do you have any thoughts on this with regard to what handcuffs you may have on getting access to your customers' data and using it, or have had in the past?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was one experience I had a couple years ago, just left such a distaste for, and I'm not going to use any names, but I'm sure some of you might have had similar experiences, but this was a number of years ago. We wanted to develop a fairly simple client scoring program. And without getting into too much details, we wanted to empower more of our folks on the front lines who are dealing with clients, whether they're sitting in front of them over the phone, to waive fees or help them out. And we wanted to know on the fly, how profitable is this client or not? And we wanted a green happy face to show up on the screen, maybe a yellow kind of no smile, no anything, or a red like frown face. And if it's a green happy face, then if the client's asking for a waive of a fee or this or that, like don't bother your manager for approval. Don't do this. Empower the client and make sure that everybody who's the green happy face is always taken care of and waive whatever you got to waive. And we figured out we needed 12 data fields to develop this fairly simple scoring algorithm. And we went to our core and said, well, we'd like to tap in and get this information. And so the response was, well, one, we can't deliver that to you real time. It'd have to be batched overnight. And so we'll give you this one string of code, updated once a day, which is not terrible. But they wanted to charge us $100,000 a year to do that. And again, this is our data. We decided not to. We kind of figured out a workaround. It was much more labor intensive, but we figured out a workaround. But we just realized how important it is to have a great core if you want to do anything exciting. So many folks have spent a lot of money on the middleware, right? So you've got these really great ideas and applications, user experiences that the consumers are a lot like. Then you've got these old antiquated core systems. You spend a lot of money on the software, middleware that allows the front end to talk to the back end. And that's where things can, work out great or get complicated. And we just found that, getting the right core, if you do want to be a progressive bank and lead with some of these cool functions, you need to make sure you got a great relationship with the core, and they're not just giving you a lip service about, what their ambitions are with, product roadmap, service roadmap, and their ability to allow you to kind of deep link into your core's data through APIs or other interfaces.
Right. Patrick, what did Quontic Bank do to deal with this dilemma?
We started this probably month 1 or 2 when I came over to Quontic. We took all of our software, including our core and Encompass. We do a lot of mortgages, like sounds like Lindsey's getting into. All of the data, our CRM, we piped all of that out real time up into the cloud, into a database we built in Azure. And then from there is actually where we have full access to all of the data. We can provide data visualizations to customers. When we want to do an integration with the fintech, we do it up through there. We've automated probably 400 or 500 hours. We can do predictive reporting, everything, because, Dan, it's our data, but the cores try to lock it away from you, right? And then you can't do anything without them charging you a lot of money. And so just recognize, okay, we're just going to pipe it up and let the core be what the core should be, which is a system of record and a general ledger. And besides that, the data is ours, and we're going to be able to freely use it how we want. And that was critical, I think, in our evolution to become a digital bank. It also helped our relationship with the core a lot. I hated our core at first because I was always frustrated with them. And then once I got the data out, we actually have a great relationship, and I love FIS. But it's because we've been able to mitigate that in some ways.
Lindsey's hearing that. Got any ideas there, Lindsey?
Well, we're not very far along on our data management process. It's probably the next thing that our transformation team is going to take a look at. But we're very frustrated by the fact that we have data in our core, data in some of our ancillary products, data in online banking service, and trying to get that all together. So that, we're looking forward to a time where we have a robust data management system, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Give me a call. You can tell me about WITAC, RPA, and data.
We use Encompass too.
Perfect.
Well, that's great. Any other topics or comments anybody wants to make before we wrap up?
No, only that thank you for hosting, Kristen. It was really nice to meet you, Patrick and Lindsey. And perhaps when this virus is over, we get to meet in person one day.
That'd be nice.
Kristen.
We'll do a road trip to New York.
One of the two. I'm in San Diego now.
That's fine too. I really do appreciate your comments. I think a lot of people a lot of bankers that I know are realizing that this is where they need to be if they want to continue to thrive and compete with other disruptors, let's say. And they may not even have thought of how they could go about doing it, but I think you each presented a different business model. One that's to the extreme on digital only, the others that's to the extreme on in-person only with the family room environment, and then Dan's approach that is kind of a hybrid of the two. And I think what I really took out of this is having a fresh mindset to look at what you're doing differently and question. And in a small arena, don't be afraid to fail and learn. Start with something like Patrick's culture is try it on. I love that. And I think if more banks did that and maybe even found a way for you all to work together and just collaborate among bankers, like-minded bankers that say, how can we do this to save our industry and to change the reputation and to really create that culture. And I know that there are consortiums out there, and I do think that that's probably a good way to go. So I do hope you all keep in touch, and I'm sure any of the bankers that are able to watch this, lucky enough to watch this, would be happy to reach out to learn more, maybe get something going with a collaborative effort. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it, and I know the listeners appreciate it too.